Hey now, ladies and gentlemen. Hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now, and a hey now, and a hey now. Welcome to hour number 3 of the line. Today, the CENTCOM commander is going to be briefing Donald Trump at the White House on the latest in what's going on with Iran. Interesting that they're reporting on that brief because that must mean there are some major movements going on or movements about to happen, maybe with the U.S. military. We don't know. Remember, we are in kind of a ceasefire hold at the moment, and Donald Trump's kind of left it as an open-ended ceasefire, signaling that the blockade is so effective, there's really nothing, no reason for us to do anything. And the reason I believe that's the case is because as this blockade continues and Iran approaches their oil deadline to where oil has nowhere to go and it starts damaging the infrastructure in that country, we are resetting the global oil structure as far as who gets oil from where. And people are starting to load up their ships off the coast of the good old US of A. It has also pressured the UAE, and I don't know what made them come to this final decision, but the UAE decided to leave OPEC. Now, if other Middle Eastern and Gulf states end up following that lead and leave OPEC, that is a big hurdle that has been dictating the oil prices across the globe because it's an organization that basically controls what these Middle Eastern countries can do or how much they can produce or how much they can export. That is about 40% of the world's oil coming out of OPEC countries. So if more countries leave OPEC, that is going to create a ripple effect across the entire market that will allow prices to drop even lower. There's all these things that are happening in real time that nobody's talking about that are, if you want to concentrate on oil and the price of oil, are coming into place that are going to create an environment unlike anything we've ever seen. And I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I'm just saying that you are about to see all these moving pieces paint an enormous picture that is going to seem like a stroke of genius. Okay? So just hang tight. It's like Donald Trump used to play during his 2024 campaign at the end of his rallies. The song, Hold On, I'm Coming. Hold on, I'm coming. It's like that. Hold on, it's coming. I'm telling you right now. But with that said, we have to make sure the midterms are secure. And you may say those are one and the same. You got to have lower gas prices going into the midterms. You can't have inflation and all of this stuff if you want Republicans to hold on to Congress. Because if they don't, and Democrats come in with some sort of sweeping win or control one or both chambers, you are then going to have impeachment hearings and chaos, and Donald Trump's not going to be able to get anything done outside of executive orders. So, where does that bring us? Well, that brings us to the rhinos that are in control of whether or not we secure our elections. People like John Thune, a rhino at his core, has stabbed America in the back yet again. He is refusing a CBDC ban in any legislation. And what is CBDC? Well, that's basically digital currency, digital U.S. currency. He says, no, I don't want to ban that, and also declared, quote, no save America. Now, that sounds like something turban-wearing jihadists would say. No save America. Or maybe an Indian on the phone, right? Some kind of scammer. No Save America. But no, that's what John Thune said. Allegedly, according to multiple witnesses. So for starters, he has reportedly said he is going to block a permanent ban on central bank digital currencies, which is the CBDC, in any legislation that the House of Representatives sends over. Now, you can imagine what central bank digital currency would mean. It would mean the federal government has control over all of your monies, all of it. And if they decide one day that they don't like what you post on Facebook or what you stand for or what you do to make a living, that digital currency is just that. It's just digital. There's no physical currency. So they can just, boop, make it disappear like that with the stroke of a key. So he has said he is going to block any legislation that has a digital currency ban in it, and he also declared no Save America. This is coming from Anna Paulina Luna, who is one of the true fighters left in Congress. Love her. She dropped this on X. She said, "Attention America, John Thune has said he will not support a CBDC ban in any of the legislation we send over." She's in the House of Representatives. He also has said no Save America. Now, Paulina Luna has been the tip of the spear on the Save America Act. She's also been the tip of the spear on the UFO stuff and the Swalwell stuff. She's really just the tip of the spear for everything, it seems like. And so you can probably take her at her word, but you don't have to. Because my favorite congressman, Tim Burchett, confirmed on his account the very same thing, saying, quote, "I was there, I heard it." Now, this comes as the House of Representatives is desperately trying to protect the American people from the coming CBDC surveillance nightmare. A central bank digital currency would give the corrupt Federal Reserve, the one Jerome Powell runs where he won't lower the interest rates, and the Democrat deep state, the power to track every transaction you make, freeze your accounts if you buy a gun or attend a Trump rally, and turn the United States into a totalitarian digital prison state. That sounds dramatic, but it's absolutely true. I mean, this is the same technology the Chinese Communist Party uses to enslave its people. And John Thune's out here rolling out the red carpet for it. Saying, "Oh, why would I not want that?" Now, Thune's already proven himself to be a spineless sellout on the Save America Act, which is critical and simple. It's a simple piece of legislation that would require proof of U.S. citizenship and photo ID to vote, stopping the Democrat illegal voting machine dead in its tracks. Just days ago, it was exposed that Thune stabbed Trump and America in the back by refusing to nuke the filibuster and pass the SAVE Act, telling reporters, quote, "That's not going to happen." He mocked even grassroots pressure campaigns as nothing but propaganda by paid influencers. To what he said, quote, "Propaganda by paid influencers." And then after a 2-week resets, he reportedly dropped the bill entirely, prompting Paulina Luna to expose John Thune on X as no longer considering the Save America Act. Donald Trump posted this morning on Truth Social. He said, "How much abuse can the Republican Senate take from the radical left lunatics in the form of Democrat senators before they blow up, in parentheses, terminate the filibuster and approve things at a record clip, including the Save America Act that would be unthinkable without the filibuster termination? The Dems will do it on the first hour of their first day. All caps, Do not be stupid. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Don't be stupid. At the end of the day, Donald Trump needs to ratchet up the pressure on John Thune. I don't think there's any other way around it. And if you're not going to do that, I'm talking call him into the Oval Office. You are the highest ranking official. You are the commander in chief. And you are very important to a lot of people's reelection campaigns. Call John Thune, who you've been very nice to, Mr. President. You've been very kind and gracious to. And tell him, bring him into the White House, bring him into the Oval, and tell him that you will rip his ass to shreds if he does not nuke the filibuster. Because nobody can dole out an ass chewing like Donald Trump. Nobody can make you look like a top-tier jabron like Donald Trump. So tell him, give him an ultimatum. And say, here's the deal, buddy. You either nuke that filibuster, and they can do it temporarily. You know, if it's that important to you, just do it long enough to pass the Save America Act. I don't care about anything else. Nothing else. I don't care about anything else but the Save America Act. Temporarily nuke it, pass it, bring it back in, and get back to your do-nothing rhino stance. I don't even care about the digital currency. Just get the Save America Act passed. And if that's not going to work, Mr. President, if you want to win the midterms, the time has come to declare a national emergency for U.S. elections. Don't wait another day. Do it now. Because it is possible. It is possible to accomplish a national emergency with our elections and get all this fixed. I'll tell you exactly how to do that when we get back. 205-545-9950. 545-9950. Noto Roofing bringing you this part of the show at OTOroofing.com. NotoRoofing.com. Hit them up, my guys, my roofing guys, Chris and Matt and Sammy and all the guys over there, man. They do just such a phenomenal job, as you know, and they've been with us for a very long time. Not just friends of mine, but supporters of the show. And as they support us, we're here to support them. And we know they're going to take care of you, man. I'm in the business of letting you guys know where the best businesses are to spend your hard-earned money. The last thing I want to do is to send you to a second-rate business that's going to scam you, and in this case, going to end up halfway doing a roofing job, and then you end up having to call another roofing company out there to fix it. That's what I want to avoid, and that's why I tell you about Noto, because they're going to be doing it right the first time. No doubt about it. That's why they're giving you a free roof inspection and complimentary roof tune-up, because they want to be able to earn your trust. If they see a small problem that they can fix right there on the spot while they're inspecting your roof, they're going to do it. And they're not going to charge you anything. But if you do have major problems, they're going to let you know. They're going to say, hey, you got this, this, and this going on. And then at that point, you decide if you want to go ahead and get it fixed. If you don't, that's okay. They'll thank you for your time and be on their way. But if it's an issue that you want to get handled, there's nobody better to do it than Noto Roofing. 205-823, not 823, 205-848-2299. There we go. Too many numbers in my head. 205-848-2299. Online, all that information, NotoRoofing.com. So let me break it down for you. We face 3 existential threats that could end America. American exceptionalism and capitalism, because of all of this voter fraud, has led to all of these stolen elections. 1 is wokeism, 2 is communism, and 3 is radical Islam. That's the Democrats' axis of evil. And now the Democrats are salivating at the thought of their coming midterm victory. They think they got it. Now, polls are showing it being neck and neck, which is usually not good for Democrats, but they think they got it, which will, for all intent and purposes, ends the Trump presidency. If Democrats manage to steal another national election, Trump will face nonstop impeachments. He'll be unable to pass any of his agenda, and we will all be facing permanent voter fraud, leading to permanent stolen elections, leading to a one-party socialist welfare state. And let me wake everybody up here. There is no other cavalry coming. The Senate will not end or even temporarily suspend the filibuster, according to John Thune. Therefore, the Senate will not pass the Save America Act. And we got to face the truth. The GOP Senate is either useless or bribed, but either way, it's not happening. According to John Thune, it's not happening. The corrupt, spineless GOP cannot do this one simple thing, and that's what brings us the national emergency card. President Trump, in April of last year, about a year ago, was prepared to declare a national security emergency for U.S. elections. This national security declaration was primarily based on the fact that Kash Patel had just found out that China and the CCP interfered in some capacity in the 2020 presidential election. Along with that national security emergency declaration was a 17-page executive order that addressed everything from voter ID to voter registration and limiting voting through the mail, going back to old-style absentee ballots where the only people voting through the mail were overseas military, elderly people, disabled people, etc. Now, Trump never released the National Security Emergency Declaration and the executive order on elections. People close to the president said he was talked out of it because he was assured that the Save America Act was the cure to the rigged elections and that it was sure to pass. It's just like the any day now. I promise the check's in the mail. That day never came. So it's time to stop playing footsie with John Thune and the Senate. It's time to stop being delusional. The SAVE Act is never passing with John Thune at the helm. The cavalry is not coming, at least not from this cowardly and bribed Republican U.S. Senate. But the National Emergency Declaration is the cavalry. I'll explain to you when I get back. In 1976, Congress passed the National Emergency Act, the NEA, which gave Congress the power to revoke a presidential national security emergency with just a simple majority. But then in the early 80s, Ronald Reagan challenged that bill, with Reagan arguing that Congress shouldn't have the authority to take down something as serious as a national security emergency. And then in 1983, the Supreme Court ruled that the only way Congress can undo a president's national security emergency is by both chambers and a 2/3 majority. No, it can't. John Bird's David Allen Co. tributes for the day. By the way, Mike Johnson speaking on Capitol Hill after the House votes to reopen DHS. That's obviously got to make its way to the Senate. And as I talk about the do nothing Senate, let's dip into this for a moment and see what Mike Johnson has to say.
We're currently working on a one vote within margin because of absences and the rest. And people have different ideas, different priorities about very contentious pieces of legislation. The equations that we solved on legislation this week were virtually impossible. Many of you said it couldn't be done. But we got it done because ultimately we just use patience and frankly prayer. We get a lot of people together and we listen to their concerns and we try to get the disparate priorities handled. I've never asked a colleague in the Republican Party ever to violate a core principle, but sometimes we have to give up on our preferences because we are in a large body. On some of these bills, some of the ones that I just named for you, they're so complicated and so complex that you literally had irreconcilable demands on either side of the House Republican Conference. And so it takes a long time to work through that and get people to consensus. But we do that patiently, we do as we must, and we ultimately deliver. Don't doubt the House Republican majority. We always deliver for the American people. We did it again, in spite of the challenges, and we continue to do that.
Okay, so if you recall, it was before the recess that the Senate sent over a bogus funding bill for DHS. And so it's taken this long, and just to show you how the process works, it's taken this long for the House to get back together and put together another bill and says, yeah, we're going to fund DHS, but we're going to also fund Border Patrol and ICE, which is what, for some reason, Republicans in the Senate thought we could get by with not doing. It's absolutely ridiculous and shows you how utterly absurd the Senate is. It's probably why Tommy Tuberville wants to get out of there. That's why he's running for governor. He's like, this place is a joke. I'm getting out of here, Coles. I'm getting out of here. And it's vitally important, as I noted to you guys, the Secret Service is, after what we saw on Saturday, the Secret Service, while Trump has moved money around to make sure Secret Service can continue to get paid their salary, because of this shutdown, they're not getting paid for any of their travel, any of their hotel stays, any of the stuff that normally gets paid for. They now have to pay out of their pocket to go work. For those of you that work for a company and you have to do all this traveling and everything else, could you imagine if your company was like, yeah, you got to pay for all that out of your pocket? And it just eats up your salary. That would be absurd. You'd be like, I can't do this job. This is crazy. At the very least, it would erode your morale at your work. And so as we watch yet another assassination attempt on the president, you got to say to yourself, wait a minute, we're not paying Secret Service what we're supposed to. And I don't know that anybody even knows that, because nobody's talking about it. It's just this one big DHS Homeland Security umbrella that we're putting it under. And yet when you break it down and you look at the individual departments and groups of people, it has major repercussions. Anyway, let me get back to my idea of a national emergency declaration. Now, hear me out, and I'll start back to where I ended. In 1976, Congress passed the National Emergency Act, which gave Congress the power to revoke a presidential national security emergency with just a simple majority, okay? So no talk of filibuster, nothing. It was just 51 votes in the Senate, simple majority in the House, and Congress can completely wipe out a national emergency declaration that the president puts down. But then in the early 80s, Ronald Reagan shows up. He says, I don't like that bill. He challenges it, and he argues that Congress shouldn't have the authority to take down something as serious as a national security emergency that the president puts in place. So in 1983, it makes its way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court rules that the only way Congress can undo a president's national security emergency is by Two things. Both chambers of Congress must produce a two-thirds majority, both the House and the Senate, and Congress has 6 months from the time the national security emergency is signed to achieve that two-thirds majority in both the House and the Senate. The Supreme Court decided that, so that's the law of the land. So Donald Trump could declare a national security emergency on elections today, based on the emergency being millions of illegal aliens and non-citizens illegally voting and changing the outcomes of the U.S. elections. It's simple. Article 15 in the U.S. Constitution says, American citizens must be afforded the right to vote. It does not give the green light to illegal aliens. It does not give the green light to non-citizens. They're mentioned nowhere in Article 15. Article 6 of the Constitution says, quote, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and must be followed by government, judges, and citizens. It's weird to hear that out loud, seeing what we've seen over the past few years, though. So by declaring a national security emergency for elections based on illegal aliens voting by the millions, and we're just saying that, we're not even talking about foreign influence, but just the illegal alien aspect of it, it's easy to prove that there's a national emergency. California is very public with their motor voter program. That's their program where illegal aliens received IDs. They receive IDs and voting rights. That's exactly why California has over 30 million mail-in ballots per election. If you get an ID and you get a driver's license, you get registered to vote. The motor voter program. It's a real thing. Look it up. In Nevada, it's even worse. Not only can you vote in person with no ID in Nevada, but every illegal alien can legally get a driver's license at the DMV. And at that point, they are automatically registered to vote as well, whether they want to or not. Then, on top of that, the state mails out ballots to every voter in the state, whether they ask for it or not, which means every illegal alien is not only legally registered to vote, but can do it from home without ever showing up to vote. And God knows if their ballot gets picked up by somebody. Nevada's encouraging massive voter fraud. So Donald Trump, and here's the moral of the story here. Donald Trump can declare a national security emergency for elections, along with an executive order stopping illegals from voting. Our elections are not honest and secure, and illegal aliens make up millions and millions of the fraudulent votes. Whether the illegals themselves are casting the vote or some NGOs getting a hold of their mail-in ballot, it's happening. And concerning voting machines, in 2018, the Supreme Court codified Executive Order 23848, which gives the President of the United States the right to interject in elections if there is proof of foreign interference. And we know that many of these voting machines around the country have had wireless devices placed inside of them, including the 30-something voting machines in Mesa County, Colorado, which, by the way, that's Tina Peters' territory. That's why crooked Colorado Democrat politicians and judges conspired to convict Tina Peters of a non-crime and put her away for 9 years in prison at the age of 70 because she knew. Democrat politicians and judges, they want to take Tina Peters. They want Tina Peters to die in prison because she knows exactly how Democrats are hacking the machines to steal elections. Imagine being sent to prison for 9 years because you saw election fraud. So surely, yeah, the Democrats will try to challenge Trump's national emergency declaration, as they always do. But in this case, They can't. They can't because it can't be undone by the courts. And that's been their bread and butter as of late. Everything goes to court. The only way this can be undone, since it is a Supreme Court ruling, is that if Democrats can produce a 2/3 majority in both chambers within 6 months. And first of all, Democrats can't do it. They don't have 2/3, not even close. They lose, period. Trump wins, America wins. Secondly, 6 months from now brings us to the last days of October. That would be a matter of days before the midterm elections. The way this works is Trump's national emergency declaration is in effect from the day he signs it. Democrats have until the last days of October to reverse it with a 2/3 vote in both chambers of Congress, but it's in effect all that time. And once that 6-month deadline passes, it's officially over. And we all know they don't have the votes to overturn it. So it applies to stop Democrats from cheating and rigging and stealing the midterms. From the day the president signs it until after the deadline passes, and then it's in place forever. And no court can get involved, thereby neutering the communist insurrection judges that always intervene in these things. Now, this is strictly opinion, that this is the path that needs to be taken, and it may be the only remaining path to save the midterms if John Thune sticks to his guns. And I don't know. Trump's just got to release a comprehensive executive order on election integrity, simultaneously declaring a national security emergency for elections based on the millions of illegal aliens continuing to vote in U.S. elections. And this makes it court-proof and Congress-proof. We get honest elections, we win the midterms, and then we institute even more stricter election reforms and without voter fraud and without millions of illegal aliens voting and without China and the CCP interfering, Republicans may never lose again. And that is the checkmate that you need to dismantle the Democrat Party. It's a question I've been asked often, which is, how do you stop the Democrats? How do you stop the threat of Democrats that always looms? Because it's always there. It's always what happens when they take power and they reverse everything that's been done. And how do we avoid that ever happening? It seems like an impossible feat until you think about it in this sense. And if you think about it this way, you could keep them out forever. And it's only going to take so many elections before the Democrat Party has to say to themselves, this party's dead. We've got to start a new party. We've got to change the face of this. We've got to come back towards the middle. And that's what Democrats really need to do. It's really, if we could ask of Democrats one thing, it would be just come back towards the middle, man. Because that's where a lot of us are at. We're just in the middle. And if you can just, you could still be liberal. You could have your, kind of progressive ideologies. But just come back towards the middle some. But then maybe Democrats could actually win a fair election. And if you win a fair election, that's great. Good for you. We'll deal with it. We won't be out here trying to 86 your guy. We'll just deal with it. That's part of the game. But we, however, are not going to stand for your people getting in power because you stole the election. I had this big, prolific moment in thought process, and the grammar Nazis are letting me know that I said cavalry instead of cavalry.
But it's a common mistake.
Y'all know how I am with words. I mean, I can barely read, okay? Much less say the right words off the top of my head. So give me a break.
You say smart things.
Remember, I'm the high school educated guy from Locust Fork, Alabama. I got a Locust Fork high school diploma. Okay? Okay, buddy. Let me flip through here. I gotta go quick. I got several phone calls, so if y'all just please don't drone on so I don't waste this whole segment on one phone call. Let's start with, how about Bill? Bill, what's up?
Hey, Andrew. Hey, now, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the election. I'm kind of in that great middle you were talking about, and I'm kind of thinking, through what you're saying there about the threat from the Democrats. And a couple of thoughts I have on it is, number one, we talked about like the CCP. The CCP had interfered somehow. I assume we don't know exactly how, right?
Well, there's been documents released by Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard that had been gathered before Trump's current administration took office that alluded to the possibility of the CCP interfering as well as other countries. But I don't know that I don't think
Well, I guess
they've definitively nailed it down to a particular people or group of people.
So I guess my point being, if we haven't nailed it down and we don't know exactly what it is, how do we know that the SAVE Act or an Emergency Act is going to stop it? Okay. Secondly, if we look at the elections that have occurred, if there were tens of millions of immigrants, illegal immigrants who have voted, then in spite of that, Trump won in 2016. He won again in 2024. And I think in the first, in the first election, he may have lost the popular vote, but in the second election, he did win it. It wasn't by 20 million illegal. I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't by a huge percent. I think it was, 4 or 5 million votes, something like that.
But is cheating justified as long as the guy getting cheated against wins?
No, cheating is not justified, but I'm saying the scale of cheating that you're talking about doesn't seem explained by what happened. For example, let's look at the California voting. When you talk about voting for illegal immigrants, you're not talking about the national elections in California. California can't override the fact that that's illegal. Now, they may allow local elections for people who are registered, to vote, people who are, in the country for, although it may not be citizens, but they're not legally allowed to allow, illegal aliens to vote in federal elections. And you need to make that distinction between the state and the federal, or local and state and federal.
Well, there's a lot of things that aren't legally allowed that still happen within the elections across many states.
This is true, but if we don't know what happened, how do we know we're going to stop it?
Well, the way to stop it, I mean, to your first point with foreign interference, the way to stop that is simple paper ballots, because the cheating that would happen by a foreign entity would have to be through a remote process, which would be gaining access to voting machines that have Wi-Fi capabilities, which current voting machines, many of which do have those capabilities, which has been proven. The other is in-person voting with voter ID. That would stop a lot of this. And you're never going to have perfect elections. I mean, there's always going to be some sort of shenanigans happening, but you could cut down tremendously. I mean, if we just look at the numbers, and you're talking about the popular vote, I mean, Barack Obama won, in 2008 with, what was it, 63, 64. No, I'm sorry. I think it was 68 million votes. And then it was a little less in 2012. And then those numbers kind of stayed consistent in 2016. It was somewhere around that realm. And then in the next election, all of a sudden, people are getting 81 million votes. I mean, it's a little bizarre. And listen, Bill, my music's playing. Always a good discussion with you. I was going to try to get multiple phone calls in that segment, but once I picked up Bill's call, I knew that wasn't going to happen. Anyway, we can talk more about that soon. I mean, that's a broader discussion we've had often.